So as we all know, a few days ago, there was a horrible plane crash that took place in DC. On Tuesday, officials recovered all 67 victims in last week's devastating plane and helicopter crash outside the nation's capital, confirming they have identified 66 bodies as crews worked to remove wreckage from the Potomac River. Investigators at the crash site made headway in their probe of the collision. So it was a collision of an American Airlines plane and a U.S. Army Black Hawk. Video showed cranes lifting large pieces of wreckage out of the river. I believe there's a video of the collision, too. Yikes. Oh. So absolutely horrifying. This looks like another video, or maybe the same one. Damn, that just looks so terrible. Now, obviously, when we see this, we're probably thinking, this looks terrifying, this looks horrible. Conservatives are thinking brown people and women are to blame. And that's what Trump literally did. He went on to blame this collision, this tragic, horrible thing, on DEI. I suppose because it's the popular thing for conservatives to do nowadays.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now, because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and
at least he is acknowledging that they're just opinions.
They say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas, but we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job. When that happened, it's a rough one. Last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers. And others, by the way.
So again, this is playing into this dumb conservative notion that, like, standards are all being lowered to allow black people in. First of all, if you think that standards need to be lowered in order for women or people of color to qualify, you might want to look inward there, pal. Second of all, the real truth of the matter is actually that there is right now a pilot shortage across all of America. So people are desperate for qualified pilots. The only kind of standards that were actually adjusted or changed was one airline said, hey, instead of a bachelor's degree or 4 years college or something, we just prefer that you have the college or the given experience to make up for the lack of college. That was literally how they changed one of the standards. The other one was, instead of 1,500 hours, now you need 1,000 hours. You can see this one. One university to grant first offer status with 1,000 instead of 1,500 flight hours. U.S. Airlines dropping requirements to address pilot shortages. Delta announced earlier this year it would drop the 4-year degree requirement. They look for qualified pilots with the equivalent of a college education through years of life and leadership experience. So again, we don't really have any significant changes or any drastic reduction in the standards necessary to become a pilot.
But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
Trump targets FAA diversity efforts in plane crash probe despite no evidence they played any role. An FAA diversity hiring initiative, he suggested it undermined the agency's effectiveness. Okay. No evidence has emerged that rules seeking to diversify the FAA played any role in the collision Wednesday. The FAA's own data shows people with such disabilities make up only a tiny fraction of air traffic controllers, and there is no indication that investigators into the crash are focused on diversity hiring, or staffers with disabilities. Also, this is important to note. There is no current evidence to support the claim that Trump fired thousands of air traffic controllers. There is no evidence of this thus far.
And another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people.
I guarantee you, first of all, we just read that it was just a teeny tiny fraction of people with disabilities that actually make up any of the jobs within the FAA. How much you want to bet that these are just jobs for like interns or like, I don't know, being the janitor or something? Does Trump really expect us to believe that they have a bunch of people that are like too mentally disabled to speak, like manning the air traffic control towers?
The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy.
Let's look up the FAA diversity thing. All right, so this is the now archived page that Trump was referring to. Hiring authority to hire persons with disabilities and targeted disabilities into mission-critical aviation occupations. They must meet the same qualifications as any other applicants. Okay, so right here, right then and there on the fucking website, even that says they need to meet the same qualifications. And also the program that Trump is raging about happened in 2019 during Trump's first term in office. He's like a dog angry at his own tail. The press release at the time said the aim was to, quote, help prepare people with disabilities for careers in air traffic operations, that up to 20 people would train for up to 1 year at a number of air traffic control centers. Okay. Yeah, this doesn't really sound like that big of a deal. And also the now archived page deliberately says, even if you have these disabilities, you still must meet the same qualifications.
The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says
Which started when, Trump?
diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
Okay. So basically Trump just rambling a bunch about things that happened when he was president the first time around. And it's even more embarrassing and fucking pathetic that he's blaming DEI before the facts are even available. But this is Trump once again on his mission to abolish DEI, apparently.